Hello everybody, welcome to the I Am IT Geek YouTube channel. My name is Shabazz Dan, I am the IT Geek. A bit late on this week's episode. For those of you who haven't seen, I have co-launched a user group within Bradford. It's going to be virtual for now with two of my friends, Imran Rashid and Mohammed Sajid. I'll put the link in the description, but we've got some really exciting things coming up, including like a monthly podcast where we're going to have guests. And also we're going to have a monthly user group as well that we're going to host. So I'll put all the links in the description. Please check it out. We've got some great cloud content coming up. So be sure to check that out. So coming back to this series, we're still on the Veeam series. If you remember last week we had the incredible Michael Cade on, which was my first sort of podcast style interview on this channel. Had a great response from everybody, so thank you guys for the support. Thank you to Michael, obviously, for coming on. And we had an amazing chat around Veeam's integration with Microsoft Cloud specifically, and the various different services you can do and have. So, quick recap into episode 2, which was the week before that. It's been a couple of weeks since we had that episode. So just to recap, that was around the SaaS area of Microsoft 365 and how it integrates with Veeam Backup. So I had a bit of an overview, if you remember. I went through some of the features of Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365. I explained some of the requirements that you needed to be able to implement it. So that was more around the sort of licensing, the server requirements, storage, also the licensing from Microsoft 365 perspective. And also like the Veeam proxy server requirements as well, if you remember. And then I went into a demo. So I had a pre-installed VM with Veeam Backup for Microsoft 365 on it. I went through the setup of a backup, backing up my mailboxes and some SharePoint sites. And then, if you remember, I went through the different sort of services and the sort of offerings you've got around restoring those backups. Restore and exchange to a PST file. And restoring single items. So if you missed that, please do go check it out. I'll put the link in the description. So now we've had a recap of episode 2. Let's move on to this week's episode. So this is of course episode 3, and today we're going to focus on backup and recovery of Azure VMs with Veeam. So this is the infrastructure as a service workloads within Microsoft Cloud. So we're going to follow a pretty similar format, if not identical format, to episode 2. So I'll do an overview of Veeam Backup for Azure virtual machines, followed by a little look at some of the features available. And finally, before I go into the demo, look at some of the requirements, and then, to finish it off, do a bit of a deep dive demo, which should be interesting. So I'll install the Veeam for Azure on my tenant, because it's available in the marketplace, and then I'll do some backup and restores. So should be a really good episode. Let's crack on. So I just want to start off by giving an overview of Veeam Backup for Azure virtual machines. So start off with it's native to Azure, and essentially what that means is you deploy it from Azure, from the marketplace. So it's got rapid deployment. It's very quick to deploy, and you can start protecting your infrastructure as a service workloads instantly. It's an agentless backup as well, so you utilize the native Azure virtual machine snapshots for more frequent Azure backups and your faster restores. It's got automated efficiency as well, so you can automate the Azure VM snapshots, the backups, the retention policies for like a more reliable sort of cloud backup. And finally, the Azure native, it kind of means it's fast and flexible recovery as well, so you can you can easily resume your production operations quickly, with your flexible, full, and even file level restore options. It's cost effective. You're optimizing your cloud costs. You can optimize protection while controlling cloud costs through built-in backup cost estimations. We all know how difficult it is to manage, regardless of whether it's Microsoft, AWS, or any other cloud, public cloud. It's difficult to manage your costs, so this definitely helps with that. It's got low cost retention as well, so your backup of your Azure VM snapshots to your Azure Blob object storage, for example, it's low for low cost and long term retention. If you remember, Michael Cade touched on the kind of blob storage and how cost effective is in his talk that we had. Security is huge, no matter, again, whether you cloud or on premises, and Veeam, with Veeam it's no different. So you've got increased security. You can isolate and secure backup data from your production, with support from cross subscription and cross region configuration. It's got layered defense as well, so protects against cyber attacks and security breaches with MFA, so it can integrate with your MFA as well, which is really good. Finally, you've got that mobility in the cloud, so you can have a portable backup format if you wanted, enable seamless backup, recovery and migration across multiple cloud environments. So again, Michael K did touch on that with the talk that we had. So moving your data from between different public clouds. You've got even like a two-step portability, so you can like automatically protect your workloads that are recovered or migrated to Azure from on-premises or any other cloud like Amazon or GCP. So that makes it really good as well. So let's move on to the features of Veeam Backup for Microsoft Azure virtual machines. So it's a quick and easy deployment directly from the Azure Marketplace. I think I mentioned this in the last slide as well. And obviously I'll be showing that in my demo, so I don't want to give too much away. It's got your automation of your native Azure VM snapshots. So that gives you fast and your frequent agentless protection. So that's a really cool feature. You've got long-term retention, so you can back up to Azure Blob Storage, as I mentioned, for very cost-effective long-term retention. It's policy-based control as well, so you can get granular policy-based control over what and how the Azure virtual machines are protected. And finally, it's got really flexible licensing options, including a free or bring your own license or BYOL license, and you can also get a Veeam universal license. So you've got different options around there, make it really flexible. So before we jump into the demo, I just want to go through the requirements. I've kept this quite short, this part of the presentation and this episode, just because I do want to focus on the actual demo and spend my time on there. So just some of the requirements. You need an Azure subscription, obviously. If you're going to be deploying it and hosting it within Azure, you need that subscription. So you can have a pay-as-you-go, or if you're a customer client, you can have a CSP or even enterprise. You need to have your resource group deployed, because obviously that's where all your resources sit, and the Veeam from the marketplace for the Azure VM backups is no different. You need to make sure you've provisioned a resource group. You need a virtual network within your Azure tenancy before you can deploy Veeam for Azure VMs, because it needs those IP addresses, it needs some networking. So make sure that's provisioned as well. Finally, make sure you've got the relevant licensing. I'm obviously going to be using a trial license. So if you just wanted to play about with it, by all means use a trial license or the free version even. But make sure you do have all the relevant licensing in place. So without further ado, it's demo time. So see you in the portal. So here we are in the Azure portal. Just wanted to go through quickly just to show you that I've got those requirements already in place. So if we go to subscription, I've got a pay-as-you-go subscription there. If we go back to home, go to resource groups. As you can see, I've got my IT Geek RG01, which is my resource group, where all my resources are going to sit. Let's go back to home again, and I go to virtual networks. You'll see I've got my VNet set up. So the address space is a /16 because I'm greedy, and then I've got a subnet as well, which is a /24 IT Geek SN01. So what I want to do here is go into the marketplace. So let's create a resource. Here we are in the marketplace, and what we want to type in here is Veeam backup for Azure. So Veeam backup for Azure. I've probably spelled something wrong there. There we go. There we go. So Veeam Backup for Azure. We're going to go for the free edition. Not because I'm cheap, just because it's a demo and I'll be destroying it anyway. And here we want to just, what we'll do is we'll go to just create it. Obviously, you can see plenty of information here, pricing plans, like obviously an overview, usage and support, information and support, and just gives you some information on that you can back up to 10 VMs with the free version. So obviously, that's really handy. So let's go to create. And here you want to obviously put in all the information it's asking for. So from a resource group perspective, I'm going to type, make sure I put in my resource group. Let's give it a name. So we'll call it IT Geek Veeam 01. We're going to stick with the UK South region. We're using the image that it's already got pre-configured there. And we'll give it a bit of a beefier VM just because we want to make sure we meet the prerequisites. So we'll put in 16 gig, and then so for the account authentication type, so we've either got SSH public key or we can put a password in. So I'm going to stick with a password. I'm just using an admin account. Just set any sort of admin account up. So this isn't going to sit on any sort of domain, it's just going to be in its own little work group. Let's move ahead to disks. I'm just going to leave the standard disk in there. And actually, no, you know what? I'm going to attach a larger disk. Just let me see what size VM it's going to give me. Okay, so it's predefined already. We'll leave it as it is on the default settings there. And here we'll make sure we've got the right subnet. And again, just for the demo purposes, I'm just going to stick with a new public IP address. And it's going to create me a new network security group as well. Obviously, if you're doing this in a sort of a production environment, you might want to think of a Bastion host or something like that for security reasons, rather than opening up the RDP port. I'm going to leave all the rest of this on the defaults. And then we're just going to let it do validation, and then we'll click create. Once I've clicked create, I'll let it finish, and I'll come back to the recording so we can look at it once it's provisioned. Just let it finish running the validation. Might take a few seconds. Okay, so I'm going to click on create, and then I'll be back when this is finished. So as you can see, the VM has been provisioned, so the IT Geek Veeam 01. We can see here, if we go into here, it's all been provisioned, we've got the public IP address. I'm going to copy that as the next stage. I need to actually go to, I'm going to stay in this web browser. I actually need to go to, it has a web address to do some initial configurations. So here it's taken me to the login page, and if you remember, we did set a username and password on it. If I can remember what they are. Ah yes, I remember. Oh, that's embarrassing. I'm pretty sure. There we go. Sausage fingers, do apologise. So this is just the license agreement that we need to read carefully and accept. And as you can see, this is me reading it carefully. And then we'll just accept those and click on accept. And here we are now logged in. And again, we just need to follow the instructions to get it configured. So we need to add our Azure connection first. So let's click on this. And we want to add our account here. So I'll just call it So what we do is we want to create this service account automatically, or do you want to specify if you've already got one set up? So I want to just create one automatically because I've not got one set up. So let's copy this as per the instructions. I'll put it on a clipboard. So I've got that, and we're just waiting for that to create that service account. So I will come back to this screen once it's created. So what I had to do there was I had to go to the URL for the device login, and essentially I had to enter that code, and then that logged me in and authenticated my global admin account. And now that's allowed me to log in, and I can move on to the next screen. So now it's going to move on to the next screen, which is Active Directory. Let's give that a few minutes. So what I want to do is here it's going to set the application group. So let's add a specific group here. And I'm just going to add the administrators group because that's got both my administrator accounts in it. So these are the groups that are required for the service provider. So it needs to be administrators. And here, just a summary. It's got all my subscription ID, my tenant ID, the AD group, and click finish. So that's going to add my Azure AD account in, and I'll be back shortly once that's finished. So as you can see, my account has now been created within the Veeam backup for Microsoft Azure. So I've got other options here. If I wanted to create other accounts with less permissions, I could create a repository account, an SMTP account, or a backup admin, which I already have, which is my SD admin account, which was the local account for this VM. So I mean, for now, just for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to stick with my Azure account. What we do need to do is we need to add a repository. So if I click on add, I'll just give it a name. Again, you put in a description if you like. Again, for the purpose of the demo, I'm not going to. We're going to specify the selected account. So obviously I've got my Azure account. I need to select that, and you need to select a storage account. So if I click on next, now I've got an option here. I can either use an existing one or I can create a new one. So for the purpose of this, I'm just going to create a new folder. So we're going to use the existing account, which is the Veeam one. And what I'll do is I'll create a new folder. Just call it repo1 data. I'll apply that. Oh, not select the container, my bad. So select the container, and then now we've added our storage account with our backup folder as well. So we want to move on to the next screen. So again, what is this going to be? Hot storage, cool storage, or inferred storage? So again, it all depends on your requirements. For now, I'm just going to select the default. And then again, this is around encryption. If you want to add encryption to your repository, you can just enable it and set a password. Again, for the purpose of this, I'm just going to leave it without any encryption. I can hear you all gasping now. It's just a demo, don't worry, I'm going to delete it all when I'm done. And then finally we just do that, and it takes the next screen takes us to the summary. So let's finish this, and then we can look at setting up some backup jobs. So as you can see, the repository has been created successfully, which is great. So we're done with that. So I want to go back to the main page, and you can see here I've got ticks now everywhere. So I added the Azure account, I've got the repository added, and I reviewed the worker configuration. So just a few other things I want to go through. So if we look at settings, for example, here we can configure retention settings, any certificates, email settings for notifications, system settings here, and also time zone. So these are all things we can set and define as we see fit. There's an option for licensing here. I've got the free one for this instance. If you do bring your own license, you can install it. Again, for the purpose of this demo, I'm just going to leave it as it is at the defaults. So let's go and create our first backup policy, shall we? So here we want to click on create your first backup policy. So it's to do, so let's go and do it. And here, as you can see, we can't do anything but add, so let's click on add. And let's go and give this a name. So we'll call it the I am IT Geek backup policy. Give it a description if you see fit. So we've got the sources. So we need to specify the source settings here. So we've got our account in there. So we need to specify the region. So again, if you want to back up to a different region, you can do. I'm going to keep it local and just go with UK where. I'm going to keep it in UK South just for the purpose of the demo. I'm going to apply that. And here you select the resources that you want to protect. So if I click on here, so obviously I want to do a virtual machine, and there you can see there's a test VM that I have in my tenant already, which I built earlier, Blue Peter style. So and again, if you want any other resources, you can look at adding those. So if I click on protect here, that will add it to my protect list. And I can apply that. So now we can move on to the next screen for the guest processing. So guest processing might ring a bell to those users who use the the Veeam backup replication for your on-premises workloads. It's got a similar sort of feel to it. Apart from this is a web GUI, and that's obviously a piece of software that you manage it through. So again, I'm going to leave all these as default because I've not got any application processors. It's just a Windows Server VM with nothing in it. I just want to test the backup and restore process. Click on targets. So this is for the snapshots and the backups. If we want to add any tags, to avoid downtime for the backups there, to avoid downtime, and high availability systems may perform the backup on a snapshot. A read-only copy of the data set frozen at a point in time. So I'm going to leave that as it is on default. I'm going to schedule retention here. You can do dailies, weeklies, monthlies, yearlies. Again, similar to how we do with normal Veeam backup replication that you use on premises. So I'm going to do a one-off backup. So I'll click on next. So this is just to give us a cost estimation of how much it'll cost to if we do so. Like for example, if I was to do like a daily backup 6 a.m. every day. And apply that. Go to next. That tells us the monthly cost will be $4.96. So, it's good. It tells say for example, if we wanted to add in a weekly backup there, how many snapshots do we want to keep? Let's go, not 0. Let's say 7. And then just apply that. Go next. Okay, so it's gone up a bit. So you can see that it's dirt cheap, $5.67. For those, it's very for those snapshots is really cheap. So again, if we wanted to enable backups here, that'll probably add to the cost. So we need to select a backup repository in the schedule settings. This is where we would select the repository if we wanted to have the backups, but where, as I said, I'm just going to leave it on the snapshots for now. So let's just go ahead and so we're just going to again leave it at the default for the settings on the schedule, the retry fail policy for 3 times. And here you see we've got all the summary. Let's just click next here and finish it off. So that's been created now. So next, what I'd like to do is I'm just gonna run it, and let's do a backup and see how it runs, and then look at doing some restores. So that backup started running automatically as soon as I stopped recording, which is quite funny. So we're going to leave this running now, and once it's finished backing up the VM, I'll come back and we'll do some restores and take a look at our data. As we can see here, that has finished successfully. Obviously, we've not configured backups; we've only configured snapshots for the purpose of this demo. But as you can see, we've got some instance. Tells us the instance there. It tells us the policy snapshot here. If we go into a bit more information here, we can look at an overview. Tells us how many instances we've got, protected VMs, the amount of policies, and then tells us here what our instance is here, and we can actually take a snapshot right now if we wanted to. If we go into policies, we can actually export this policy and import it somewhere else. We can edit it, add another policy. We can start if we want to do a snapshot as well. Start the policy. Here we can see the protected data, and this is where we can actually do our restore from. So we've got a few options there. As you can see, we've got click on restore here. We can either do a VM restore or disk restore, or we can actually go a step further and do a file level recovery store. So I just want to quickly click on here, and that'll just put test in the reason. And what that'll do is that'll do a file level recovery, but for the purpose of this, I wouldn't mind just doing we can restore a disk or the VM. So let's do a VM restore. So we'll click on here and we see that there's a test VM. Click on next. So we're going to restore to the original location, or we're going to restore to a new location. So actually, what we'll do is we'll go next, restore to the original location. And this is just a warning, saying the following changes will happen to, do you want to continue? So it's essentially telling us that the existing virtual machine will be overwritten and the disk will be overwritten. If you had an instance where the disk was deleted or the VM was deleted, this obviously warning wouldn't appear. But we'll click on OK. It's just the process that we want to see. And again, you can say power on target instance after restoring. So we'll click on that to power it on. Let's finish that now. So that is going to be doing the restore. As you can see here, it tells you there that it's running. So once that's finished, I'll come back and we'll take a look at the VM. So here we can see that the restore was successful. And again, it gives us a start time, which was 20 past 12 midnight. Yeah, is that late, believe it or not? And it took about 6 minutes to finish. So if I go back into my Azure tenant, go into virtual machines, and we can see it's here. I should have really deleted it, I suppose, to just click on test VM there. We can see that it's here. It's got it's actually got a public IP address as well. And again, we can look at the activity logs here, just to show us. Look, then, as you can see there, the run command for the virtual machine, the Veeam backup, it was initiated by. So that tells us essentially that it was restored. So that's proof there. You see there it was deleted during the restore process. So there's proof that it did actually work. So that's the demo done. Just showing exactly what Veeam backup for Microsoft Azure looks like, how it's installed, and how you configure a backup. So that draws a conclusion to episode 3. I just want to go a quick summary of what we covered. So we covered like an overview of Veeam backup for Azure virtual machines. Just explained about what the product is and what you can do with it. And then explained some of the features around cost optimization, the snapshots, and also the automation. I then explained what the requirements are. So we discussed the subscription, the resource group within Azure, the virtual network or the VNet within Azure, and then also the license requirements. So I obviously went with the free version for the license. Finally, I did a demo. So we provisioned it within the marketplace. and then I showed you how to add an account, add some relevant repository, and then also I showed you how to do a backup and a restore of a snapshot. And so that draws an end to the episode. Thank you very much for watching. I hope everyone liked it. I do appreciate everyone's support. Please do drop me a like and a comment, if you liked it, if you want to see anything else within the Veeam backup for Azure sort of area. And also please, do share my videos with people if you think they'll be relevant to them. And I really appreciate everyone who's watching. And if you could subscribe, I'd even appreciate even more. I'll put some links into some of the user group stuff we're doing for the Bradford Cloud user group, so be sure to catch that. And then until next time, thank you and goodbye.